Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you.
So,
How are you?
what is your clean time? How much? Like, what's your sober date?
My sober date is January 5th, 2024. That gives me about 7.5 months sober.
So, what was going on January 4th of 2024?
Um, so basically, like, I kind of I went downhill really quick, and I was in the program, and I was in AA, and I was using drugs and drinking while I was still going to meetings, and um, it was a lot of chaos going on, and I couldn't keep up with that image that I like to keep up with, and I like to be myself, but I also want people to know that I want to do this, so I couldn't keep up with that and anybody's expectations. Because I was using and I was drinking and I was trying to go to meetings, but I knew everybody knew that I had used. So it was like the guilt, shame, remorse, but times 10.
What were you using?
So I was using crack cocaine, and I was using methamphetamines, and I was drinking alcohol, preferably Jack Daniels, but yeah.
That was my drink of choice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my last drink was Jack Daniels. I drank a whole bottle, and I woke up hungover, and I was like, okay, I either need to start drinking or I got to quit drinking. I got to pick one.
Right.
So I chose to quit, and I haven't had a drink since February 28th of 2020.
Right.
So 4.5 years ago. Now, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up I grew up all over, honestly. I grew up in Rossford. I grew up in Toledo. I grew up in Perrysburg. Like like from age 6 to age 15, I had been to at least 5 different places. I even lived in Texas at one point. My mom never really kept us in one place. And it was hard because my mom had an ex-boyfriend that abused us for years and years. And some other things happened, but that's not my story to tell, you know? So I
you
have,
said Toledo, so you grew up in Ohio?
yeah, so I'm from Ohio.
There's been so many people on my show from Ohio. It is crazy. And I'm not even from Ohio. I didn't know anybody from Ohio until this show. And
Right.
you're probably, I'm not even exaggerating, like the 20th person from Ohio.
Right.
Like, it's so crazy to think how many people from Ohio have been on this now. So you grew up around Ohio, a little bit in Texas. I moved around a lot in my 20s, so I know that kind of chaos. I moved 30 times between 18 and 32. I moved 35 times.
Right.
So I understand that chaos, and I moved from state to state 6 times. So I lived in 5 different states in that amount of time too. So I understand that chaos. What did you start using first, drugs or alcohol?
I started using alcohol first. I was about, so I had my first drink at 6, and then I had my first drunk at 12.
Okay.
So my first drunk was...
Yeah, tell me about your first drunk.
So my first drunk, I was with, my mom was kind of one of those people that, if you drink in the house, if you're around me, it's fine. So one of her friends had came over, and he's like, I want to drink with the kids. Like, it sounds crazy, right? Like, it sounds so crazy, but that's just how it was. And he was an alcoholic as well. So he gave us a couple wine coolers, and like, I'm 12 years old, so obviously I can't drink like a bunch of alcohol and not get drunk, so I drank probably about 3 or 4 wine coolers, and I was feeling tipsy. And then he brought out the Maker's Mark, and which was, I think it's whiskey or bourbon.
Yeah, I think it's bourbon.
Yeah. So he brought out that, and we each did a shot. And by that time I was done, I was drunk. And they took me and put me in bed, and I woke up the next morning like just so like that was so cool, and like I wanted to try it again, but I didn't drink until like on my own until about 14. And so like it was always like it was foreign for the next 2 years after that. And I think it's because my mom felt so bad because like in that friendship, relationship, whatever it was, she let him take control again. So it was like she let one man take control, then she let another man take control and affect her kids.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 sisters.
Okay.
So
are you the oldest, middle, youngest?
I'm the baby. So yeah, so I'm the youngest. I'm 24. And yeah, so just a little bit about me. I was born in August, and all my other family is in January and December months. So like my birthday's the oddball. I never felt like I fit in because of my mental health issues. And I realized at a young age, like when I was little, I had seizures. And so like I don't know how in depth you want me to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was younger, I'll tell you from the beginning, and then I'll tell you to the middle, and then we can talk about more questions. So when I was little, my mom she divorced my dad, and then we lived in Texas for a while when we were little. And then about age 6, my mom moved back to Ohio and moved to a little town called Rocky Ridge. And, she wanted to get a new start on life. She wanted to be able to do it by herself, just have that independence. And the man that lived next door with his parents ended up getting in a relationship with my mom. And the first day that I met him, I remember being so young, I told my mom, I said, I don't like him. You need to get back with my dad. And I said, there's something, I just don't like him. And I could tell like deep inside that like there's something wrong with this guy, even being so young. And so a couple of years go by, and there was just so much trauma and abuse. He was very verbally abusive, very mentally abusive, and very physically abusive. If you ever heard the story of Cinderella, that was me. And with the evil stepsisters and stuff like that. But like my sisters, they were just as scared as I was. So when they acted the way they did, they acted out of fear. And so moving along, what really did it for my mom was when he had put my head through a wall at 7 years old. And I was like 7, 8 years old. And it was like she was on the couch with my other sister, and they were just in tears, terrified, because I came down the stairs and I had brought like stuffed animals with me, so it made a mess. And he was an alcoholic and an addict as well. And it was just a lot, My mom kind of just said, it's time for me to leave. And thank God she did, because he probably would have killed me. And so we moved back to Texas. And we ran to Texas because she wasn't finding anywhere else to go. So we went to Texas. And
did you have other family down there or something?
Yes. So my mom's family lives down there. So it's really cool, So my mom's family lives down there, and they're like the cool aunts and uncles. When I look at a relationship and I look at somebody what a relationship should look like, I used to look at my aunts and uncles' relationship, and that's how I aspire my relationship to be like, married for years, got some kids, you're very happy, you have your ups and downs, but you get through it. You don't yell at them, you don't beat on them, but that's what I go for. That's what I've gone for in the past in my relationships. So it was like we moved to Texas, and we moved in with my aunts and uncles, and we were only there for about a year or two, and then we moved back to Ohio. I would say about a year and a half, probably, because I was in fifth grade when we moved back, fifth grade. Sorry, I keep looking off. I'm trying to remember. So, do you have any other questions that you want to go along with this?
Keep going. You're moving around. You're in Texas.
Yeah. Yep. So we end up moving back to Ohio, and we moved to this little town called Rossford. And it was like, I had found a best friend, even through all the chaos. My mom got back with that same man that beat us and everything. And even though we were in such dark places with him, I had found a friend, and her name was Michaela, and she became my best friend. I'm sorry if I get a little emotional, because we don't talk now, but she saved me in so many ways that nobody could understand. I remember being young and being younger and having sleepovers, and we would go find new friends, or we would go down to the park, and we would just run around town, and it was like I had found a little bit of freedom. And so carrying on, I don't really remember a lot about those years besides more abuse and trauma. So I remember I got my first boyfriend in junior high, and his family didn't really like me because I wasn't excelling in school like he was, because of all the seizures and the head trauma and everything. When I was in Texas, I'm gonna backslide a little bit, but when I was in Texas, they found out I had seizures, and it was it was so hard on my mom. It was so hard on my family. It was so hard on my mom. It was so hard on everybody, because I had a couple seizures. I had had a couple seizures, and those seizures, I had stopped breathing. And, I was a mess. I was a mess, but it scared me, because not only am I fighting for my life with my mom's boyfriend, but I'm fighting for my life, and I can't even control my body. I have no control over my body. I have no control over this. And, so it was just crazy. So fast forwarding back to Rossford. So they found out that something was going on with my sister. I'm not going to disclose that, but something was going on with my sister. And, my mom ended up getting the man removed from the house. And, he was so unhealthy and so toxic and so abusive that there was no other way to explain it, And so when she got him removed, you think things would have gotten easier, but my story is not only just a message of hope for people who are in it and can't get out. It's for people who have been in it and want to get out, because there's a big difference between you can't get out and you want to get out. And I learned that, along the way. And, I remember the one time, so my first boyfriend's family didn't like me. And that was my first time feeling left out, feeling alone, feeling like I'm a reject, besides all the other stuff. But this was the first time that I had ever had people that weren't my family or had been around my family tell me that I'm not good enough.
Now, were you drinking at this point?
No, I was still young, and I was probably about 10 or 11, and I hadn't had my first drunk yet. So moving forward, time goes by, normal stuff happens. It's starting to get a little normal. And, my mom's ex-boyfriend broke into the house, and, he would break in all the time. People would let him in the apartment building, and it was just terrorizing. So we ended up moving across town, and we got a new place. And this is where I was about 13, 14 years old, and this is when I started drinking more. I had found a couple of friends in Rossford. And, when I got into junior high and high school, it was like game over. Because, I was hanging out with seniors, and I was a freshman, and people liked me. I was cool, and they liked my sisters. And so my best friend now had dated my sister before we became real best friends. And before she got with my sister, this is when I was about 14, 15, 14. And she had gotten with my sister after I had met her. I had met her first. And we would have this relationship. She was a mothering, a nurturing person to me, because I was still growing. I was still trying to get a grasp on things. And, she just became the most important person in my life at that moment, because she was the one that was feeding me. She was feeding my soul. And, she never judged me for anything I did. She still doesn't judge me. And, this is the first time I've actually told my story to the full extent, so I'm not going to apologize for getting emotional, but I mean, it might happen. So basically, she became my best friend, and then she got with my sister. My sister turned out to be a lesbian, and, it was just, we were all hanging out. We were all roll dogs. My best friend from elementary school was with us, and we all hung out. And, there was just more friends getting added into the group. We would have little fight nights at the house. We would all just grab pillows, put them on the ground, and body slam people into the pillows, WWE style. And, it was a good time in my life, before I got into the active addiction and I could just drink normally, normally.
How much older is your sister?
My sister, so both my middle sister's 2 years apart, and my oldest sister is 4 years apart from me.
Okay, so not that big of a difference time-wise between you three.
Yeah. So, but see, my oldest sister never really, she had moved in with my dad when all this stuff happened, in between times with Nathan and everything. The man that abused us, I'll say his name. I don't mind. So when everything happened, my sister had moved away. She moved over to my dad's house, and there was a lot of disconnection in the family because of that. I felt like my dad had chosen my sister over me and my other sister, but I understand now that that's what he could do at the time. He didn't know what was going on. He just knew that my sister wanted to move in with somebody else. So,
so you all have the same dad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we all have the same dad. My mom was she was with my dad for a good a few years, a little while. And I think it's probably about 6 or 7 years when she was with my dad, maybe longer. I think longer, I don't know. I'm not sure. But my dad and my mom always have had the friendship between each other. Even though they didn't like some of the things that each other did, they still kept that bond with each other. And they still do to this day. And I think that's the one thing that saved our family. because my dad was very understanding. He's a very kind person. And my mom is just, she's broken, but she's trying to get better. You know, she's doing so good right now. And, you know, she still has her challenges. My mom struggles with mental health as well. And it's a challenge. You know, I'm bipolar.
Me
And
too.
yeah, so I'm bipolar and I have major depression. I have anxiety, and it's genetic, but it's also trauma induced. So my mom is also bipolar, and you know, I got that side of the spectrum, you know. So, but moving forward, I met my friends in high school, and I didn't do well in high school. I didn't do well in school because I couldn't focus. I couldn't understand what was being taught unless it was English. You know, I was really good at English. I had good grades in English because I love reading. I love writing. You know, I write poetry. I don't have any with me, or else I would share it on the podcast because it's really good. I mean, I've shared it. I've shared it other places and with other people. And it's like I get to pour my pain and my confusion and my hurt and my joys and my just aspirations onto a piece of paper, and I can share it with the people around me. You know,
That
and
makes a lot of sense. I've written screenplays, and doing this is my form of therapy. I'm
right,
in therapy. I have a therapist. I have a psychiatrist because, like I said, I'm bipolar also. So I have both of them. And I've been doing this show for 3 years, and I don't make any money off of it. For me, it's part of my recovery process to get to know people, to have these kind of conversations, you know, learn from people and get some experience, strength, and hope, as they say. Because my
right,
show, you know what I mean? I'm all about getting experience, strength, and hope, what it was like, what happened, and what's it like now.
right,
And, you know, I'm an NA guy. I've done AA for a while, but now I've been mostly going to NA meetings, and I also do GA for Gamblers Anonymous.
that's
So
awesome.
I have an AA sponsor, I have an NA sponsor. I don't have a GA sponsor yet because I'm only 30 days abstinent. But
Right,
I'm getting to the point where I'm ready to ask somebody. So I totally get trying to heal as much as you can. And that's
right,
awesome that you're 24 and realizing all this, because at 24, I was 2 years into a decade-long addiction. So I wish I could have been your age in 24 to where I can start healing, because I didn't get a therapist until I was 32. You know what I mean? And then I went years without a therapist until about 2 years ago. I've been in therapy now with the same therapist.
mhm,
So I'm still healing. You know what I mean? And this is when I stopped. I relapsed I can't even tell you when I relapsed, but I got back into the program April 1st. And I took some time off from the podcast because I didn't feel like it would have been genuine for me to put out shows and put out new episodes when I was still early in my recovery again.
right,
And a few weeks ago, my therapist was like, I feel like you're ready to bring back your show because I feel like that was healing for you. And she was right. And here I am and doing this again and meeting new people like yourself. So let me try to get you back on track. So you're like 16, you have a group of friends. Are you drinking like weekends and that kind of stuff now?
Yes, so I'm like 15. And I tried cocaine first at the age of 14. And my addiction didn't really kick off until 15, 16 when I started using crack. Um, and you know, I once I did that first line, like it was over with. I had fallen in love. Like I was out of my body. I had an experience. It was like almost like a spiritual awakening, but the opposite, you know. It
It
was
was,
like
yeah,
it was that moment of clarity, you know.
aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Like, this is what I've been missing.
right, my whole life, you know, I don't have to be anybody, I don't have to do anything because I am like it gave me confidence, you know. And because I didn't have
How
any.
did you get into cocaine at that age?
So I had a girlfriend. I'm bisexual. I had a girlfriend at that young age, and we were together for 4 years, I think, on and off. And she didn't force me to do it, but I mean, she was doing it and I wanted to do it. By this time, I had already been smoking weed, I'd been drinking, and it was just another thing to add to the plate. So then I got into doing cocaine with her, and she was just toxic. She was her own person and I was my own person. We were both toxic because I didn't love myself and she didn't love herself either. And I can say that today because I know I didn't love myself, and sometimes I still don't.
It's okay. So you didn't love yourself, and you guys basically you were codependent.
Yeah, so codependent. If she was going somewhere, I was going with her. And when we stopped talking, like, for a while, I had met a couple friends, and it was just party time. We would just party. We would go to the trap houses and hang out and party, and it was just coke, drink, coke, drink, coke, drink. And I hung out with a group of guys, and I was like the little sister to some of them. But then I was like, I was so young, and they were maybe like 2 or 3 years older than me. Well, it was probably about 3 or 4 years, because I was 15 and they were like 18. And which is, it's kind of sick, but they wanted what they wanted, and I didn't give it to them because I didn't want to ruin the friendship, and I didn't know at that time how sex would impact my life. So moving forward, I'm with the partying friends, and I started meeting drug dealers, and I started meeting guys that just wanted somebody pretty to say that they got their drugs from them, because that's what I was. I was very beautiful. I'm beautiful now, but I was a very beautiful young woman, and I had the bleach blonde hair. I was real skinny. And that's my idea of beauty to me, sometimes is back what I looked like before I did drugs,
And blonde hair.
You said what?
I said I have the bleach blonde hair.
Yeah, you do.
I grew up with blonde hair and I hated it. My mom will always say how much I hated being blonde when I was younger. And now every summer I bleach and dye my hair because I bleach it and then it's orangey tint.
Yeah.
And then I dye it to get it right. And I use the purple shampoo. I got all the tips and tricks on how to keep my hair blonde. So I get the bleach blonde hair thing. And I understand the body issues because at that age, all that was on TV is stick figures, and that's what you're supposed to look like and aspire.
Right. So moving a little forward, I'll tell you now how I got into using harder drugs. I know cocaine is a hard drug, but the crack is a lot more addictive, and it's, to me anyways, it was to me. And this is just my experience. I'm not trying to push it on anybody else or anything, but for me, when I became 15, when I became 16, my next door neighbor at the new house that we lived in, so we moved from Rossford to Perrysburg, and because the man that was abusing us when we were little, he had broken into the house, and he found out where we lived, broke into the house, and severely abused my mom. And it was just we couldn't keep running, so we found somewhere else to live in Perrysburg. And once that happened, You know, it was like we were all cool again. But that's when the harder drugs started coming into my life. You know, I was doing ecstasy. I was taking triple C's. I was just looking for an outlet. You know, once I put one in me, it was like nothing could stop me. And so I was hanging out with all these friends. You know, we're all partying and drinking and, you know, getting blacked out drunk. And it was like my behaviors were just changing. My motives were not the same as they were before. If you had what I wanted, I was going to get it. But I was still going to be the life of the party when I got it, you know? And so moving forward, I had hung out with my neighbor. My neighbor's daughter had came from, I think, New Hampshire. And she was using crack cocaine, and she had put some on a weed bowl. And because like I was really just smoking weed at the time and doing all the other stuff, but I wasn't that big into coke and the crack yet. I was just partying a little bit here and there and everything. And so like I had pulled back from it a little bit because I was going to high school. I couldn't keep up with it. So, but I was still partying, and she's like, do you want to come over here and hit this? And I was like, sure. And I was like, you know, this made me feel funny, you know, and it was almost like she roofied me, but she wanted to get me hooked. You know, she wanted me to feel how she felt is what I really think it was. She wanted me to experience that aha moment again. And I went home, and it was like the feeling that I had never felt before. It was so grasping, like gripping on me. And it was amazing to me at the moment, because I didn't have to feel anything. I didn't have to be anybody but myself. But I didn't realize that myself wasn't me anymore, you know? And I was still that fun, young, caring, loving person, but I was starting to get the grips on addiction. And so moving forward, I figured out a way to get my own. And I went to this woman's house, and she taught me how to smoke crack the right way, because I was smoking it out of a weed bowl because I didn't know how to smoke crack. So she taught me how to smoke crack the right way, and using a utensil. And, you know, I thought it was grand. You know, I almost passed out. Like it was wild. But this woman would become a very major person in my life, because not only did she teach me how to do it, she taught me the rules of the game, you know, like what you do and what you don't do as a woman out here in the streets. And it was more of like she wanted to dominate me. She wanted to dominate my life. She wanted to be in control of whatever I did. And by this time, I was leaving my ex-girlfriend. So I gotten back with my ex-girlfriend. And then we were together for like a year or two. And she was there through all the triple C's and everything, and the ecstasy and partying. And by this time I had left her and I had met a man. I met a guy. That's the best part of the story, is meeting a guy. So I met a guy, and he was everything I thought I wanted. You know, he was a coke dealer. He was really hot out in the streets and this and that. And he had beautiful long hair, and he was perfect build, tattoos everywhere. And just a big red flag, like big red flag. But that's what I liked, because that's all I saw through my childhood was red flags. And I was taught and learned that was love. And so moving forward, when I got with him, it was over with. You know, I couldn't contain it anymore. You know, he thought I was just doing coke, but I came back to the house, and I would sneak out of his house sometimes, and I would use my drug of choice, and it was just like, it was too much to keep up with. So finally I introduced it to him, and I was like, this is the way I do it. You know, I know he had already done it before, but he didn't want to admit it. But like other people told me he had done it before. So like, I don't carry that burden anymore. Like I turned him on to it. I don't carry that burden anymore because he knew what he was doing. He could have said no. And so we got into our active addiction. And this is a part of my story where it goes from just being me to being one, you know, to being interlocked, you know, a trauma bond at best, you know, soul ties type thing. Like it was crazy. And so we were using. And it got to the point where I met somebody and they introduced me to prostitution. And I did it by myself for, I was 17 at this time. I did it for a couple months by myself, maybe 2 months. And then I had met a man, the woman that the woman that taught me how to smoke the drug. She said her brother wanted to meet me, which they weren't real brother and sisters, obviously. And I was young, you know, they were in their 50s, 40s, you know, and they made a bet on who would get me first. And I didn't know about the bet until years later. And they made a bet on who would get me first. And my ex-boyfriend now, at the time, well, he was my boyfriend at the time, but he's my ex now. He didn't like me spending too much time with Ray. Ray was the guy the brother. And so moving forward, there was just so much chaos. You know, I'm still hanging out with my best friend. I'm still trying to keep up that appearance. I'm still going to high school. And I'm a junior at this point. And my grades are really rocky. I don't have barely a GPA, you know. And I'm just trying to keep up with both lifestyles at this point. And so when I met Ray, it was instant chemistry. Like we were just fire on fire, you know, just like I was with my boyfriend, you know. But this was like a more toxic, like, you know, you can tell me what to do and I'll do it type relationship. The other one, my boyfriend, was more of like, you do what I say because I make the money, I go to work, I do this. I'm selfish as fuck, you know. And so carrying on, when I met him, it was all that in a bag of chips. And he would introduce me to going to different places. He was basically my pimp. And yeah. So I was being trafficked. Sorry, I should have used a different word.
No, it's okay. It's important to, you know, talk about. You're not the first person, and there's been many from Ohio that were trafficked. I talked to 2 different girls from Ohio that were trafficked by the same people at the same time. And they realized, once I interviewed one, the other one happened to be catching my show and watched it. And she's like, oh my God, I know her. So I did an episode with both of them together. This way they could like catch up for the first time being sober. So Ohio has this thing that I'm learning about being trafficked and at a young age, and, you know, losing yourself and other people.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it went. You know, I would do all types of things. I would traffic drugs with him, and, you know, I would sell drugs with him and sell my body. You know, that was my new norm. And I still was carrying on a relationship with the boyfriend at the time as well. And it created a lot of problems in our relationship. If you thought the drugs created a problem, that situation created a bigger problem because he wasn't getting what he wanted enough. And he loved me. I believe he loved me. We just didn't know how to love each other on drugs. And, you know, I'm still drinking, and You know, every time, if I didn't have my drug, I had a bottle. If I didn't have a bottle, I had marijuana, you know. And that's why, like, I see everybody today, like, they can smoke weed and, you know, be in recovery. And, like, that's just not my thing, you know. I didn't mean to do the air quotes because some people's recovery is different, you know. I shouldn't do that. But everybody's looks different. But I know I can't do it because once I put something in me, I can't stop putting something in me. And I always want more, you know. So we'll fast forward, you know, I carry on with this lifestyle. Eventually, I would date eventually my boyfriend's baby's mother, child's mother. And I was in a relationship back and forth with both of them. And it was very, very, very exhausting because she did what I did and he didn't like either of it. He didn't like us being together or hanging out or doing anything together. He wanted us to be enemies because he could then get what he wanted from both of us, you know. And when me and her were together, he couldn't get anything, you know. He had to fight to get something. And you know, it was just, I fell in love with her, you know, and I did because for some reason when I'm with a woman, I feel so deeply, you know. I feel deeply anyways, but like I feel a different connection with a woman. But when I'm with a man, I also feel a different connection. So I have all these situationships going on and I'm losing track of myself. You know, I'm losing who I am. I don't know who I am right now. I just think I'm a drug addict that wants to get help, but I don't know how to get help, but I don't want to get help at the same time. So it's very confusing. And moving forward, I ended up, I'll tell you a little bit about when I got into rehab because that carried on for years. You know, those 3 situationships carried on for years. And I went to my first, what?
It sounds exhausting.
It was exhausting. You know, I mean, my family didn't want to talk to me. My friends, like my best friend that had been my best friend, like she's my best friend now and had been my best friend when she was with my sister, you know, she knew what was going on and she wanted to help me, but she didn't know how. But also when we got into our active addiction together, it was wild, you know, because me and her ended up getting into active addiction and together. So I got all these relationships going on, all these situationships going on. Meanwhile, I'm trying to be a best friend to my best friend. And I know I cannot keep up that end of the relationship because of the person that I am at that point. She loved me, you know, she loved me so much, but she had to step away from me because I was constantly just tearing my life down. And I respect her for that today because she gave me distance, but she also gave me love at that distance. And she took me in whenever I needed somewhere to go. You know, whenever I was in trouble, she was there to be a friend, you know, not just to bail me out, but to be somebody that I could rely on, you know, to not judge me, no judgment, no hatred. You know, it was just pure love. And it still is to this day. And that's all I ever wanted, you know, was just somebody to love me. And so it was difficult, you know. I got that love from her, but like nobody else was giving me that love. So I started finding it in men, you know. I started finding it in my dates. And it was a very sad time in my life. And so when I ended up getting into recovery, I got caught for prostitution. I got charged with prostitution. And I was in Hancock County. And, you know, I had tried and tried and tried to get out, but I couldn't. You know, I tried to stop. I tried to do this. And I never really put it into action until I got arrested. The second time. Because the first time it was just, I got put on probation and, you know, it was just, there's little things to all of this, but I'm not going to go that far into detail because it'll take up too much time. And so when I got on probation, I got arrested the second time, and they told me, if you come in here with your regular mix of cocktail, you're going to jail. And part of me was just broken because I knew I wouldn't have what I wanted anymore. I knew that I was going to be in jail. I was going away for a long time. But when I got in there, it was like something inside of me changed. You know, I started seeing myself come back. You know, once I detoxed in jail, it was like I ate. I got to eat. I got to sleep. I got a little job in there, you know. They put me in the workers' dorm. So, you know, I had a little sense of purpose, just a little tiny bit. And I found a higher power in there. I found a God in there, you know, as a lot of people do. But it gives you time. And I say that because jail gives you some time to think about what you want in your life. And, you know, when I was in there, I started talking to a counselor, and I was like, you know, I'm in this life and I can't get out. And I was just bawling my eyes out on the phone because they only did phone visits. And I was like, I'm in this life. I can't get out. I don't know what to do. I need help. And I was like, I know if I go back, if I get out of here and I go back, I'm going to go back to everything that I was doing. So she set me up with a caseworker, and a caseworker told me that I told the caseworker the same thing I told the counselor, but I was in tears. I was done. I was so broken. And I've been broken so many times, you know, in these past couple of years of trying in and out of recovery. I've been in and out of recovery for 4 years. And I was just broken this first time. I was so broken and so bruised that I wanted out. And I went to my first rehabilitation center, and I met the most beautiful people. You know, I met the most beautiful people. And I did things in that rehab center that could have gotten kicked out, but they gave me a second chance. So God is giving me these second chances, you know, left and right. He's putting these people in my path to show me that, like, it's okay to make mistakes. Just don't make them again. Learn from them. And so my first year of recovery, I had found another relationship. I was in this relationship for 9 months, and he was amazing. You know, he showed me what a real relationship should look like, but it was also, it didn't feel real. I couldn't love him because, like, I could love him, but I couldn't love him enough to do anything about it, you know, if that makes sense. You know, the love was there. I was scared. And because he was everything that I wanted, you know. And I ended up ending that relationship. And it was a sad time in my life. I ended up shaving my head. I was going through a whole Britney stage. Like, I shaved my head. I got all these piercings, did my gauges. And I wanted to change who I was because I felt like I wasn't enough. And, you know, it wasn't anything he did. It's the way that I reacted to the situation. You know, he was moving out of sober living, and I thought he was leaving me. So then again, I'm abandoned again, you know, and I'm out of all those other situationships because I'm clear across. I'm going to lay back a little bit. I'm clear across the cities and everything. So I'm like 2.5 hours away from where I was, you know, and in this sober living, I flourished, you know. I found God. I got baptized. I found friends. And I found my second best friend. And we're not friends anymore because of some selfish things that I did. But the friends that I have in my life today the friends that I have in my life and the friends that I've made throughout my life don't even understand how much they've impacted my life. They don't understand how much they saved me when I couldn't save myself. And so moving forward, I'm going through this stage. I end up relapsing, and I'm in and out of the rooms. for 2 or 3 years. I even moved down to Tennessee to do the environmental change at one point. So I come back and I get sober, and I get about 6 months sober here in PC. And so that's where I got sober the last time, is in Port Clanton, Ohio. And I wanted it, but I didn't want it, you know. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be sober. And I get about 6 months in, and these dark thoughts are coming in. I'm depressed. I'm alone. I'm living at my father's house, but it's just me and him there, and he works all day. So I'm just sitting by myself in my thoughts. My dad was amazing. He is amazing, And so I ended up relapsing, and that's when we started our conversation. I was still using, going to meetings. I had a sponsor, and I was lying to her. I was prostituting myself again. This time I was prostituting myself. And because that's the life I had learned, And I love people so hard, and I don't love myself enough. And today, what I can tell you is, today I have a life, I was able to find a life. And to the people around me that held me through those times, I met this woman in the first 15 minutes of knowing her. We clicked, and she became a light in my life. She became a bright light in my life. And she picked me up when I relapsed in PC. And she said, we're going to get you to a detox. We're going to get you to a detox when you're ready. When you're ready. And she kept putting it in my head. That little mustard seed of faith came in. That little mustard seed, that something greater than me is going to do something in my life if I go back to getting sober. And I got sober again. And I found out they were putting fentanyl in my cocaine. And it was a hard detox. At that time, before I went into detox, I was having seizures. I had went unconscious a couple times. And I was just constantly having seizures from the speedballing, and my brain couldn't handle it. It couldn't handle the drugs anymore. I was fried out. And so this time around, I work a program of AA. I go to NA meetings as well. I do both. I take suggestions, and I listen to my sponsor. I got a new sponsor, and I listen to my sponsor, even though I don't like what she says sometimes. I listen to her, and I have a great group of friends. And I'm just, right now in my life, I'm struggling with mental health, but I can find happiness in that. I can find joy in that, because I know something greater than me is working in my life, and God has been working in my life this whole time. He needed me to go through what I went through to get closer to him. And I believe that. And it's been such an amazing experience, just going through all of this and getting to share this story with you, I don't know if you have any other questions.
No, I mean, I'm just so relieved at 9 months you have the most clean time since you were a kid.
Yeah. So I had a year at one point, but I had ended up relapsing as soon as I got, like, 2 months after I got my year. But I wasn't fully out of it. This is the most real clean time that I have ever had. Yeah. The real sobriety, the real recovery, so I've had clean time, but I've never had
recovery.
No,
there's a difference. I always say that everyone has the same rock bottom, and it's the day you surrender to a program. Whether that program is NA, AA, my wife does recovery Dharma, which is like a Buddhist approach to AA. And, she had 4 years sober before she did that. And now she's starting to heal from that. And I feel the same way. I went years without a program, and figuring I could do it myself, but really you're just white knuckling it until you get a sponsor and do the work.
Right. So I'm through my steps now. Not through them, because you're never really through them, but I've done my steps to the best of my ability. And my sponsor actually told me today that I can start sponsoring people and I can start sharing my lead. And it has just been an amazing experience, you know, and I can't wait for the moments to come.
Yeah.
This has been
promise. It's what's it, page 82, the promises.
More will be revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the 9-step promises, you know, and the steps have really played a big part in my life, you know, admitting that I was powerless, believing that there's something greater than me, turning my will and my life over to that being, you know, and making that inventory. And, you know, my inventory, I didn't like looking at myself, you know, that goes with like, I didn't like telling somebody about what I did, truthfully. You know, I didn't like telling them that, but I did because I knew it would save my life. And I didn't like looking at my character defects. I did not. I'm not greedy. I'm not overly sexual. I'm not too much for this. You know, I'm not all these things, but really I am. You know, I have things I got to work on. And then 8 and 9, I still am working on. I have my list. I'm still working on some amends. Because I never started the amends.
Yeah, there's no timetable on the amends. It literally says, you know, become willing to make amends, not that you have to make them all in a certain amount of time.
Yeah, well, thank God. Because I would just be one ball of anxiety.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have to have that faith that something out there is going to speak through me, and it's not going to be me speaking. Yeah. You know. So moving forward, I'm on step 10, 11, and 12. I take my inventory at night. You know, me and a really good friend are praying, and we pray morning and night together. And she's really helping me get out of this place that I've been in, you know, out of that mental fog. And yeah, so now I have these amazing friends in my life today. I have powerful women. I'm at one of my friends' house right now, and I told her that she's the one that introduced me to you. And, you know, she's like, yeah, you can do it. You know, go ahead. And this has been a good experience.
Good.
I think this has been a very healing experience to be able to share my story like that with you. And because, like, you know, when you're at the podium, you don't share your full story. You just share bits and pieces, and then how you got sober and, you know, what it looks like today.
Yeah.
You know, so this has been a cool experience.
I'm glad I could give you an outlet to be able to tell your story in more detail. And, you know, you're just going to, as long as you keep on the right track, you're going to learn more and more about yourself and get more resilience and get more confidence and become just an overall better person. Because like I said, you're 24 and at this stage, and I was nowhere near where you're at 24. You know what I mean? Like, I was far, far away from where you're at right now at your age. I started drinking when I was 11. I became an alcoholic when I was 12. And I became a pill addict when I was 22. So, and that went on until I was 32. So the fact that you're sitting here 24 and learning so much about yourself, it speaks volumes. So I appreciate being so open and honest about your past and getting through your story. And thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today.
Thank you. I hope that someone can relate to this and know that they're not alone, you know.
Your story is definitely relatable. I'll send you some relatable stories for you to check out, and you'll see that you're definitely not alone.
All right. Well, thank you.
No problem. Thanks again, Emily.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.